Creepy John Podesta complains leaked DNC emails eclipse the Hollywood Access tape, by Christina Layla for thegatewaypundit.com. Fake news media outlets found a new shiny button, Facebook data mining during the 2016 presidential election. On Wednesday, Hillary Clinton's creepy campaign manager, John Podesta, whined like a baby to MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell over the fact that his leaked emails eclipsed the Access Hollywood tape of Donald Trump's locker room talk. Maybe because no one cares what Trump said in private over 10 years ago. Of course, Andrea Mitchell teed up the question for Podesta by reminding viewers his emails were leaked minutes after the Access Hollywood tape hit the wire. And just to set the context, both of those WikiLeaks dumps were early in the morning to drive the news cycle in the U.S. So unusual from the get-go, and you guys noticed it right away, Mitchell said to Podesta. Absolutely. Let's just take a listen to what he's saying here. It's, I think, a 6-minute clip or something.
A critical part, of course, of the covert social media campaign to influence the 2016 election was WikiLeaks, publishing stolen emails from Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta.
In other words, we're not supposed to find out the truth, you see.
Which were exposed on October 7th, 2016, only minutes after the Washington Post published the Access Hollywood tape, on only 2 hours after the U.S. intelligence community sounded the alarm that Jay Johnson was just referring to over Russia's election meddling. John Podesta joins me now. John, welcome. I know a lot has been revealed. This is all new to you as well, I believe.
Well, some of this we knew, but I think we're finding out a lot more information now, particularly the fact that private information of 50 million Facebook users was pilfered using a ruse of having an academic come in and try to access the data. And we learned that that's been transferred to Cambridge Analytica. And they evidently used it during the course of the campaign. They sometimes deny it, sometimes admit it, sometimes tout it, sometimes say they were responsible. But I think we're learning more every day, and there are a lot of questions still to be answered.
The data from...
You know, the question that should be answered, actually, is why isn't this guy in prison already? That's a very good question. And I could say forget about the emails. I mean, really? This guy is still walking around scot-free?
Your email dump came out only minutes after the Access Hollywood meeting.
Late on a Friday afternoon, so...
And just to set the context, most of those WikiLeaks dumps were early in the morning to drive the news, the news cycle here in the U.S. So this was unusual from the get-go, and you guys noticed it right away.
Oh, absolutely, and I think it was done to try to divert attention, at least to give the anchors on Fox News something to talk about other than the Access Hollywood tape. And I think that the question is whether there was coordination between the campaign and WikiLeaks, at least through intermediaries, about the timing of the release.
And since WikiLeaks is connected to Russia, how does that arouse your suspicions about Russia's role?
Clearly, the WikiLeaks obtained, and I think all the U.S. intelligence community believes that that WikiLeaks obtained those emails as a result of the Russian intelligence agencies hacking into my account, into the DNC accounts, and then providing them to WikiLeaks. I think one interesting line of inquiry that still needs to be pursued is we now know Mr. Nix, the CEO of Cambridge Analytica, was in touch with Mr. Assange. We don't know exactly the full extent of what they might have communicated with one another, but clearly Mr. Nix was trying to get access to what Mr. Assange was talking about. We know that the same thing was true with Roger Stone trying to contact WikiLeaks and others, Lucifer 2.0, which was a direct Russian front. So yeah, there are a lot of questions out there. There's a lot to be answered for. I think one of the things that, again, this is sort of new news, the revelation by Mr. Wiley, the whistleblower at Cambridge Analytica, noted that Steve Bannon was directing the acquisition of Facebook information during his tenure as a board member and board secretary of Cambridge Analytica. They were meeting in the apartment of Rebecca Mercer with Robert Mercer, who were the backers of Cambridge Analytica.
And also huge funders of the Trump campaign.
Huge funders of the Trump campaign, huge funders of Breitbart News. So I think one of the things that was clear, I think, in the sting operation that your partner organization in the UK ran was how kind of laughable the House Intelligence Committee inquiry into this was. Mr. Nix himself was kind of laughing about the fact that they only asked him 3 questions and they were kind of done with him. And I think it's time to reopen that investigation, as Democrats have suggested. It's time to bring up the Mercers back, bring back Mr. Bannon, and ask them what they knew and when did they know it.
There are other connections. The academic from Cambridge who initially provided the app and this pathway for them was teaching at in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Right. Russian American. Right.
At the Russian American organization there, rather. And also one of their clients was Lukoil, or they had meetings with Russian oligarchs.
Yeah, the Lukoil connection is odd because Lukoil seemed only interested, according again to Mr. Wiley, the whistleblower, in the political attitudes of the American public, and this is at a time when the Russians the Ukrainian situation had blown up, simultaneous with the Internet Research Agency, the people who were indicted by Mr. Mueller were sending delegations over here to try to figure out what they could learn so that they could run the Russian operations against the campaign in 2016. And in the meantime, Cambridge Analytica is talking to Lukoil, which is led by another Kremlin-friendly oligarch, and they're asking him not about how do we sell more product, but what about political attitudes of U.S. citizens, and how do we learn more about that? How do we learn about the prejudices that may be there? And then when you look at what they were, again, in that Sting video, what they're touting, putting information into the bloodstream of the internet, letting it push out, the whole idea that the Russian operation was built around the same thing, of trying to push fake news into that bloodstream and let it rattle around and affect people's attitudes. The idea of psychographic information that might affect people's tendency to be fearful or to send racial messages, all that sort of a piece. What we don't know is there a direct connection between the Russian operation and Cambridge Analytica.
To be continued. John Podesta, so good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adrian.
Well, WikiLeaks.
Johnson, who served as Secretary of Homeland Security to President.
Sorry about that. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has said many times on the record that Russia was not the source for the Podesta emails. To this date, the FBI still hasn't inspected the DNC servers, nor have they interviewed Julian Assange. On Wednesday, Julian Assange hammered fake news Andrea Mitchell for suggesting the Russians gave Podesta's hacked emails to WikiLeaks. Assange tweeted to MSNBC, "Error in your reporting. WikiLeaks has nothing to do with Russia, and even the allegations against it are considerably less than Politico, The Intercept, and other U.S. press."
Conclusions of the intelligence community with respect to the Russian hacking were not conclusive as to whether WikiLeaks was witting or not in being the conduit through which we heard about the DNC emails that were leaked.
They didn't deal directly with WikiLeaks, in contrast to DC Leaks and Guccifer 2.0.
The WikiLeaks connection evidence there is not as strong, and we don't have good insight into the sequencing of the releases or when the data may have been provided. We don't have as good insight into that.
We'll say quite clearly that our source is not a member of any state, including the Russian government.
You gotta love Julian Assange. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.